corporate America. It's just a giant performance. The American dream says we should go to college, university, get a degree, get a job to pay off that degree, and then rise in the ranks at that job. That is not what happens anymore. That's not what happens. That is not the process anymore, but that is what we were promised. That is what we were told, that when you get a good job that you like, you're pretty much set for life. And if not set for life, you're probably going to be there for at least 5 to 10 years, and then you might get laid off, or you might get another job, or yeah, you might be there for 20 years and get a promotion. But again, that is just not what happens. These days, if you want to get a raise that's more than like $1,000 per year on a salary, or if you're hourly, more than 10 cents a year, you really have to job hop. You have to job hop. And I know back in my parents' days, job hopping was looked down upon. Job hopping meant that you were not stable. You did not want to dedicate yourself to a company. But now it's just a necessity. Job hopping is actually a necessity because, again, with the rising costs, the exponential rising costs of life in general, not just living, not just groceries, not just gas, but life in general, $1,000 per year raises are not going to cut it anymore. Or you could say even 10 grand a year salary raises are not even cutting it anymore. If you want a senior level position and you're mid-level and you're trying to rise in the ranks, your corporation is probably going to hire somebody outside of the organization to pay them rather than hire you internally as a senior for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. So for those of you that don't know, I lost my corporate job back in April, which was about 2 months ago. And I'm a remote graphic designer. You know, I work from home. It's very cushy. It's easy. I make pretty pictures online. Of course, there's more to it than that. The job can be very high stress. It's not just all fun and games, although, like, it's probably one of the easiest jobs on the planet, I would say. It's still not an easy job. I don't think any job is easy anyway, really. But essentially, like, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I went to school for. I've always been an artist, a creative person, and this is the degree that I chose. I chose graphic design because it's creative yet tech, you know? So tech jobs pay, creative jobs don't really pay. So I wanted a little bit of both, so I could stay creative but get paid for it, you know, and not be that stereotypical starving artist. It's turning out to be that way anyway, though, unfortunately. It's like, again, us millennials especially, we planned for this particular type of life. And we are learning that the world is changing so much that that is not an option anymore. And Gen Z's already figured it out. Gen Z is already, like, dipping their toes in the corporate world and being like, what the fuck is this? And, like, walking away from it. And I don't blame them. I do believe Gen Z and Gen Alpha are actually going to be the catalysts for the way that we change work. Unfortunately, I think millennials were given this promise. It might be too late for us, you know, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think what's going to happen first is that jobs will disappear. There will be no jobs, whether that's because of AI or cutting costs or whatever. Jobs will disappear at first. It'll be very, very hard to get a job, which is why I am, like, buckled down, really looking for jobs. Exhausting. It's demotivating. because the job market's bad now. And it's like, I want a job, but I don't want a job. And the reason for that is because I worked for this company for 2 years, right? And it's remote. So I don't really have to, like, deal with people in person. But the corporate lingo, the corporate culture, it just, like, bleeds into everything anyway. You don't even have to be in an office to experience this cringy corporate culture that has now permeated. And it's just something we really don't need, because the people who've created this cringy corporate culture are completely tone deaf to what people who just want to clock in and clock out want, right? It's like someone like me, who I have, side gigs and dreams on the side. Like, my true dream is not to be a full-time remote graphic designer. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I'm doing other things. I'm working on a YouTube channel, and then when that kicks off, I'd like to do other things. Maybe write a book, or be a life coach, or do speeches. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure at this point, but I would like to take the channel to another level, or, whatever. If I just have a YouTube channel and I'm like full-time graphic designer and I have the YouTube channel on the side, whatever. I'm kind of open-minded about it, but ultimately I don't just want to be a graphic designer for the rest of my life. And I don't really have a desire to rise in the ranks. Because rising in the ranks just kind of, it doesn't even equal, like, more pay. A lot of the times it just equals more responsibility. But ultimately, rising in the ranks is not necessarily a dream. What I like to be more, what people who want to just clock in and clock out want is, like, we want appreciation, we want recognition, we want to get paid, we want genuine work-life balance. We don't just want to hear that you want work-life balance for us. We genuinely want that. But that's not what the culture promotes. And then we want benefits. We want great health insurance. We want great 401k matching. We want unlimited PTO, but we don't want to feel guilty for taking that unlimited PTO. We want actual work-life balance. We want communication. We want clarity. We want kindness and patience and no attitudes. We want little to no stress. We want respect for our time, and we want respect for the fact that we don't care about your company as much as you care about your company. We will care about your company to an extent, but only to that extent. So when the culture of corporate America is kind of like just a bunch of people who see their corporate job that really means nothing, it really means nothing. I mean, we are on a floating rock or a water ball that's just like flying through space. And there are just people who make their corporate job so important. They take it so seriously. And that trickles down to the rest of us. I don't know what it is. I have this theory that these people who take their corporate jobs so seriously they don't like their families. Like, maybe they're a mom or a dad and they don't like their kids, they don't like their wife, they don't like their husband, and they use their job as, like, this escape. Or they're the type of person that's, like, addicted to progressing in life. But progressing, not like themselves and who they are and their spirituality, but progressing materialistically. So they want the title, they want the label, they want the plaque, they want the money, they want the clothes, they want the car, they want the house, they want to show people what they've earned. So these, like, high achieving, gung-ho, I'll work nights and weekends just to get that raise, just to get that promotion. A lot of these people are very cliquey. like I'm in the club and they're not. And, you know, a lot of it is just corporate politics. It's not actually like genuine talent and the genuine care for the company even. I would say a lot of corporate culture, especially at the higher up, is more about themselves. They're in it for themselves anyway. They're in it for the title. They don't care about the company either. But they are these high achievers, and these high achieving people just, I don't know if they think like everybody thinks the way they do, where they think their corporate job is the end all be all to their life. So that's kind of how they treat it, and then they treat everything as urgent. Everything is urgent. There's deadlines, there's time constraints, there's numbers, there's quotas, there's quarters, there's, you know, and it's like everything has to be bam, 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 bam. And since this is like their big purpose in life, they take it out on the people down below. The people like me who just want to clock in and clock out. I got other shit going on. I've got friends, I've got family, I've got a girlfriend, I've got events lined up that I want to go to, I want to go into nature, I want to go camping, I want to go in the swimming pool, I want to go kayaking, I want to do my YouTube channel. I don't want to fucking, like, your corporation is literally just my paycheck to pay my bills. It is not my life like it is for you. Not everything has to be urgent. The meaninglessness of corporate paired with the people who take it way too seriously is what makes it truly cringy. And then of course there's lingo, like, we'll circle back to that. Let me piggyback off of that. Oh, this year's quarter, the numbers were good. Did you get that Excel spreadsheet? Replying to your last email. Sorry I'm late. Thank you for your patience. It's just all this fake performance. Like, I'm faking being kind and nice and just, you know, it's... And the people who are awake, who are just there to clock in and clock out and pay their bills, the people who are awake see through the bullshit. And it feels very lonely because, so this corporate job I worked at, I worked there for about 2 years. It was the longest time I ever really had a corporate job because prior to this, I had maybe a couple of like corporate internships or like one other corporate job, but mostly I was a freelancer. And one of my jobs, I just like traveled all the time for work. I didn't really have coworkers. It was just me and some other guy. So I wasn't ever fully integrated into a corporate experience like I was at this job. And this job is the job that really made, like, opened my eyes to this weird corporate experience. Or I guess you could call it like a world, because it's a totally different world of its own. The way that you interact with people is so different and unique. And I'll be the first to say, my coworkers were chill. They were chill people that I'd probably hang outside of work if we lived around each other. We all lived in different states because it was a fully remote company. They were chill people. But I also felt that I didn't really belong even still, because there are just signs that these people take their jobs a little too seriously. I mean, maybe I should be taking my job a little more seriously, because at the end of the day, they have their jobs and I don't. Although the people who got laid off along with me, they were also high achievers, overachievers. You know, some of them had been there for 20 years. They dedicated 20 years to that company. Some of them, I know, were up at all hours of the morning submitting projects that had short deadlines. So, being an overachiever doesn't necessarily get you a hall pass when it comes time for layoffs. So maybe I should have a better attitude about work. There is a woman who is on TikTok who I really wish I had found when I was kind of in the depths of despair of discovering that I don't like corporate culture and the fakeness and the performance that corporate culture is. There was this woman on TikTok and Instagram. She calls herself a corporate inmate, and the weekends are parole. And if she loses her job, she's back on the streets, but she's still a fugitive, so she needs to find her next prison. And just the way that she talks about it is very cute, because it's relatable. I mean, it is somewhat of a prison. It almost is like, we've been trained from very young that for the rest of your life, you're going to wake up really early, Monday through Friday, enter a building, or be on a computer or whatever, and be there for 8 hours a day, and then go home. You might have to do overtime sometimes, and then you'll only have 2 days off per week to do whatever, but most of what you'll be doing is probably just chores. And you learn that from a very young age. And we've literally been doing it our whole lives. I mean, even if you have like a blue-collar job and you don't necessarily enter a building, you're still stuck somewhere for 8 hours a day that you probably wouldn't choose to be at if you didn't need to pay your bills. So we're all kind of trapped somewhere for 8 hours a day so we can pay our bills. Now, what do I think is the solution to this? I think there is a solution. Because in my mind, I do think we live in a time where we are fortunate. We don't have to run a farm, or, women don't have to get married and have babies, and that's their only choice. Men don't have to do physical labor if they really don't want to. They could sit at a desk all day. But ultimately, I think we've gone a little bit overboard with the work type thing. I think Europe has kind of figured it out with the 3-hour siestas in the middle of the day. I really think they've figured it out. Like a 3-hour break in the middle of the day. Do whatever you want. Eat, sleep, walk, go into nature. And then maybe go back to work for a couple hours and then go home. But these high-achieving fucking assholes, these young CEO assholes, have taken it upon themselves where it's like, my most recent company used to be a family-owned marketing agency. And then this big CEO came in, and the coworkers have all agreed that the working environment has gotten worse since he's arrived. And that's because whatever they're teaching finance students in school, you're teaching finance students or business students or whatever you have to be in order to be a CEO. They're teaching these people to value profit over people. But not just over people. Value profit over quality as well, because when you value profit over everything else and then cutting costs, well, that's just one of the symptoms, right? You're going to cut costs. So you're going to cut talent, which is going to stress people out because now they're getting the same amount of work with less people. You're going to maybe start doing shortcuts. You're not going to want to fix the little core issues within the company that make working there difficult and sometimes even impossible. You're just going to worry about the fact that the company's making money. If you see the company's profits skyrocketing, or the numbers are better than last year, to the CEO, that's his only job. So to the CEO, thumbs up. That's good. Good. It doesn't matter if his employees are suffering. It doesn't even matter if really anything that drastic happens at the company. Like, my company lost a huge client, and that's why we got laid off. He probably is not too worried about that. He's probably going to okay, he had to lay off like 10 people, but that's okay. He will be fine. Their company will be fine. Ultimately, they're not going to take a huge hit from it because they're saving a bunch of money by laying off a bunch of people, and it's all good. We'll reset, and we'll go into quarter number 2, you guys, and it's going to be really great. And it's like, if you had just worked on the core of the company, which is organization, communication, process, you might not have even lost this client. Like, that's the thing. I truly believe this client was so sick of us because we were unorganized consistently. We were late on deadlines consistently. We didn't do what they wanted us to do consistently, and they felt like they had to continue to keep telling us the same thing over and over. And it's, you know, it's not just one person's fault. I do think it was the lack of organization and process within the company. I'm not saying the manager should have been micromanaging us. I'm saying that when you put processes into place, an organization into place, and you make that the standard in your company, things will run like a well-oiled machine behind the scenes in the logistical areas, while the creatives can just do their work. At this company, the biggest lesson I learned was how to be organized, because they weren't organized, so I had to organize myself. And it's just kind of ironic because I ended up losing the job anyway. You know, I came up with organizational techniques for myself that the company needed as a whole. A couple of people, but ultimately at the end of the day, they didn't implement any of that into the process as a whole. I'm not saying like I'm special and that I made up something and I created something that they just didn't have and that I deserved better. It's not like that. It's more like your workers should not have all of their own organizational processes. They shouldn't have to do that. Like, that should be done for us. Like, we were working on like 5 separate software programs, all for assigning projects, organizing projects, and, you know, time tracking. And it's like, my God, it's just so much fucking going on. It's just too much going on. So the solution is a 4-day work week. 4-day work week. Let us have 3 days off. 3 days off. 1 day to relax and unwind. 1 day for chores. 1 day for whatever the fuck. Like, let people relax and breathe. 2 days is not enough. And I work from home, so I can actually do a lot of chores kind of simultaneously that a lot of people can't do. Like, for example, I can do laundry. I can throw a load of laundry into the machine and let it run and switch it and then take it out, and then maybe I'll fold it later. But the majority of the process I can do while I'm working, because it's all kind of just automatically happening in the background. Another thing I can do while I'm working is like the dishes. Like, I'm on break, I eat, I can do the dishes. I mean, if I'm waiting for something at work, I can just like vacuum if I wanted to, or wipe down the tables. Like, there's a lot of chores I can get done even at work, and yet I still would find myself incredibly stressed and still having to do endless amounts of chores even on the weekends. And I was like, oh my God, what if I had to like drive an hour into work, drive home from work? Like, that's, you're working for 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, essentially, because you're in the car for 2 hours every day. That's insane. I can't imagine, like, going into work every day, which is why I choose the remote lifestyle. So we need 3 days off, and then those 4 days a week, I truly believe we only need 6 hours a day to work. 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. Now I'll meet you in the middle and say, okay, we only have to do 8 hours a day, 4 days a week. I don't care. The 4 days a week is all I need, but the bonus would be 6 hours a day. Keep the same pay. I mean, I don't care. Like, if you really don't want to give us raises, let us work less. If you really don't want to raise the wages despite the fact that everything else in the country is skyrocketing, then let us work less. You know? Give us a break. All this urgency, all these deadlines, all this more money, more customers, more purchases, more click rates. It's like, why can't we just maintain? Why do we have to like constantly skyrocket the numbers? Why do we constantly have to grow? Why do we constantly have to progress? Why can't we just maintain? Whatever happened to just maintaining? It's like, oh wow, our company made $10 million last year. Let's just try to do that again. If we make 9 million, no biggie. We'll try to make 10 million again, and that's cool. But no, they're like, let's try to make 20 million this year. And in order to do that, we gotta cut 20 employees, replace them with AI, raise the costs on certain products and services, and like, that is the mindset of people these days, and it's just exhausting. I'm like, aren't you tired? Aren't you fucking tired? Like, relax, take a deep breath, get off your computer, go on a vacation. Like, I see Yosemite mountains, and I think that is what I want to see all the time. And these people see rising numbers on a graph, and that is what they want to see all the time. And I'm just like, ugh, why? You really think you were born onto this planet to watch the numbers on a graph rise? They're just numbers. Money's fake anyway. All of this is fucking fake. But yeah, that was like the disheartening thing I learned after being in this solid corporate environment for 2 years is it's fake, it's performative, it's meaningless. What I am doing is not making an impact at all. At least not in like a bigger sense. You know, I think this YouTube channel is making more of an impact. I definitely do. That's why I'm doing it, because at the end of the day, what the hell else am I doing? Why the hell else am I here? So, I hope you don't feel so alone, if you do, in the corporate world. I am still looking for a corporate position. It's like, I want to work, I want a job, because I want money. But I also don't want to work, and I don't want a job, because it's like you either are stressed because you have no job, or you're stressed because you do have a job. Because in these jobs, everything is urgent, everything is stressful, everything, you know, you have to be... Let me break it down for you. In my last job, we were assigned like 20 projects a week. 20 fucking projects per week. And we had to get them all done that week. And a lot of these projects were huge. And some of them were small and annoying. And you have to make sure that you have like little or no mistakes, and everything's looking good, and if you have mistakes and those mistakes pile up, you get reprimanded. It's insane. And it's like, you guys give us way too much work with little pay. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, but yet I work my fucking ass off at your job, and then you tell me that I'm not doing enough because I'm making mistakes. It's like, I'm a human being, I'm not a robot. And if you give me 20 projects in a week, and they're all due that week, there's gonna be mistakes. There's gonna be mistakes. And if you meet somebody who can do 20 projects in a week with no mistakes on any of the projects, they're probably working overtime, they're probably working past 5 o'clock, they're probably gung-ho about the job, And it's like, I'm just not. I'm not gung-ho about the job. I'm not gung-ho about your company. I'm not gung-ho that I have to spend 40 hours a week at a computer desk, staring at a screen, hurting my eyes, sitting on my bum, not moving, hurting my posture. I'm not gung-ho about that. And a lot of these projects are just busy work. They don't even, like, mean anything. And nobody's giving me praise. Nobody's giving me appreciation. Nobody's telling me they appreciate me. I feel like I'm an invisible entity at this job. I feel like I'm a ghost. I don't feel like I matter. And with no praise, but all criticism, you lose motivation. You lose morale. You lose love. Any semblance of love that you had left for the job is gone. If you're just receiving criticism and no praise, which is what happened. I just received criticism and no praise. I never got approached and said, Emily, you are such a great worker. We're very appreciative that you're here helping us. Nothing. Never. Ever, ever. Just, you're not doing enough. You're making mistakes. You missed this message. You know, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Like, and it was annoying to see everybody else just so gung-ho about the job. I just felt so alone, you know. Just felt so alone. So I hope you don't feel alone, because corporate America is a joke. It is a total joke. And I think we need to start normalizing kind of giggling about it, you know. Just giggle about it. When I get a job, and if you get a job, or if you have a job in corporate America, and you just see right through the bullshit, just be neutral. Be neutral. Someone gives you an attitude, or they want to start something, be neutral. If you had a stressful day, you had a stressful work day. You didn't have a stressful life day. So just realize that. Like, work is work. Leave it at work. And be neutral. Don't catch an attitude. Don't, you know, be sarcastic or passive aggressive. Just be neutral and be fairly polite. And I'm not saying be like totally fake. You don't have to be totally fake. I'm not saying like any of that. Just be neutral. Be like a robot at your job. Just do your job. Yes, sir. No, sir. And then work on the things that you truly want to do with your life. Like, I've got a YouTube channel. What do? Are you a painter? Do you paint? Are you a streamer? Do you make things on Etsy? Do you know, have a family? Are you more passionate about your family, your kids, your husband, your wife? Work on the things that you really love outside of work, and just clock in and clock out. It's as simple as that. But just know you're not alone if you truly feel as well that corporate is a joke. But anyway, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I appreciate you tuning in. I will see you in the next video.